Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan.
Hi, I'm Jessica Faust.
We are literary agents. I almost messed up my little spiel. We are literary agents who have taken our popular blog to YouTube to discuss all things publishing. And today we're talking about IP. If you are not sure what IP is, that stands for intellectual property. And this video is going to explain it all. And we have to credit Ramona Pina, an agent at BookEnds, with the clever Dr. Seussian title of The T on IP.
We love clever titles, fun titles. We love fun titles.
Yep. So we've been getting a lot of questions about IP in our comments, and so we figured we'd do a full video on what is it, how do you get it, who can get it, all of the things that you need to know when you hear that term in publishing. Yeah.
Great topic.
So if I think we mentioned, I think I'm messed up right now.
Why don't you start by explaining what IP slash intellectual property is and what it can do for an author, I guess.
Yes. So IP or intellectual property is when a publisher has an idea, a concept, or a property that they're looking to create a book for, and they're seeking an author to complete the book for them. So backwards, you're probably used to an author having an idea and seeking a publisher. Flip that over, it's IP. So there are I would say there are two buckets of IP, right? There's licensed property. For instance, like Disney is doing their new movies and they're doing books to accompany their new movies. If you love
we have a Little Mermaid one we have a Little Mermaid one right here.
Yeah, Bluey is a huge one right now too. Penguin Random House is a huge Bluey program. So many books are coming out. That's considered licensed property IP. And then the other side of the fence is when publishers have an idea for like a traditional novel or picture book that like a rom-com. There's a rom-com idea that they have, and they're seeking somebody who can write that book up for them. That would be the other category of IP.
Yeah, over the years, I think IP is often thought a lot of in the children's area, but over the years, we've done a lot of IP in cozy mysteries specifically, and a lot of the big name authors that you know and love now, their first projects were actually IP, and it's how they sort of kicked off their career and their relationship with their editors and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it can be a great way to start your career or find work and fill in your schedule and kickstart a new name for yourself in something maybe you're interested in working on or that you haven't had the chance to work on yet. So there are a lot of opportunities and pros that come out of IP. Where these opportunities come from can vary. There are some publishers who do a lot of IP. For instance, Disney does a lot of IP. Some of the big five imprints will focus on a lot of their own projects and seeking writers. But I do think that it's not like it's all over the map. I think there are imprints that are doing it seldomly, who have an idea and will seek something. I wouldn't say there's no level of consistency to what publishers are looking for.
No, and I think it comes and goes, and I think sometimes it's editor dependent. Back in the Stone Age, when I was an editor, I loved coming up with ideas, and I had a boss who was the same. And my boss actually ended up leaving and going to a press that specifically did IP, where her entire job was to come up with these ideas and write up these Bibles and then give them to authors. So I enjoyed doing that in the publishing house, but it's rare that there's sort of one person whose job is to do IP. Usually it's an editor who's inspired by something and really wants to go forward with it and create something and then start seeking an author for it. It's my experience anyway. And I was thinking it's become more and more popular, but I don't know if that's really the case. I think it always the popularity of IP comes and goes depending on what's happening in the industry.
Yeah, or a publisher will have an agreement with a certain property. Like they might agree with Bluey that we're going to do 20 books over the course of 2023. And then they'll have a quota in that sense. But that does depend on the publishers who are doing those partnerships.
Like Star Wars, for example. I worked on some of the Star Wars books years back, and the publisher has an agreement with Lucasfilm in that case. And we sort of almost It's almost like we work as a packager and process the books, but we also have to get all the permissions all along the way and things like that for that kind of a project.
Yeah. So how do you hear about them? Typically, an editor who is seeking somebody to do an IP project will reach out to their network of agents. They'll see
Yeah.
who their network of agents has that might be available or might be interested or capable of doing a project like the one that they're pitching. And then there are two different ways that I can see it going. Sometimes they just say that's the perfect match. And yes, we'd love to work with this person. I would say that usually happens when that author has a bit of a track record, some
Yeah.
publications under their belt. The other route is the auditioning process, right? Where they ask if you have
Yeah.
samples, writing samples. Sometimes they'll ask you to write a new sample that's geared towards the pitch concept. And then it's brought to the team the same way a book might be and decided on whether it would be the perfect fit for the book.
Yeah, and I don't know if you said this, but sometimes the editor may reach out to ask for a specific author. They may
Mhm.
say, I'm a huge fan of this author, you know, do they have time and interest in doing this project? That does happen as well.
Yeah, there really is no standard for it, which is, I think, the hardest part for authors to hear because there's so much going on like the social media about getting IP, and I think authors all want it, but there is really not much consistency to who gets it, when they get it, and how they get it.
And I would say though that most consistent thing is that you probably do need an agent. I think it's really hard for unagented authors to find their way into IP. And a lot of the publishers do like a track record of some sort with the author if they can get it just like anything else. So, once you get an agent, if you're interested in IP or you have an agent, it's definitely worthwhile to talk to your agent and let your agent know you're interested. And and the agent can then also reach out. We just had a conversation here about editors who do IP who we could reach out about and let them know we have an author or authors or, hear what they're looking for and things like that.
Yeah,
One of the many jobs we have, one of our many hats.
seriously. The other thing to keep in mind is that the deal terms for IP can vary. And I think this is probably what shocks authors the most when they get that offer for an IP project and it's maybe not what they were expecting. So a lot
Mhm.
of IP, particularly licensed IP, um, the deals are not always the best, right? They might have lower advances. You typically won't get royalties. And you have to negotiate for things like cover credit. There
Yeah.
are like any book offer, there are a range of different offers that you can get. Some IP will have royalties, some will have cover credit and copyright included. It's always great, and this is another reason why you have an agent, to just negotiate the offer that you get, try for cover credit, see if you can get a higher advance and royalties. But keep in mind that a lot of times it's the publisher's idea, so they will likely want to keep as much as they can.
Yeah, we just had this conversation here where somebody was asking what the terms were for IP, and people were responding with what they got at different houses for different projects for different ages and all sorts of things. And it was all over the place.
It really is all over the map. And it really is just when we get an offer for it, we try. We try for everything that we would want in a standard deal. And we get told no. And then sometimes it's like, this is the best we're going to do. Do you still want to do it?
Yeah. But it is a really great opportunity to get your foot in the door. A lot of authors, if they've never been published or have a limited publishing history, find it can be a way to get into other things. And I think that sometimes there's this misconception that to be a successful writer, you have to do your own books. But there are a lot of people out there, and I can think of a few that I've worked with over the years who built an entire career in some big houses based almost exclusively on IP and the relationships they built with IP. Eventually, they actually went and published their own books, but that was only after years of
There are
building a
New York
name
Times
by writing
bestsellers.
somebody else's IP.
Yeah. And there are New York Times bestsellers right now on the list that are IP. And you probably don't even know it.
Yeah,
But just because a project maybe didn't originate with the author doesn't mean that they didn't put in all of the work to write the book, conceptualize as much as they can, revise the book. They still put in the work of writing that book.
oh
Um,
yeah, and I don't think it's any less creative.
no,
like, I think sometimes there's this feeling, well, it's somebody else's idea, therefore it's not as creative. And I don't believe that at all. Most IP projects still allow for a lot of creativity and really want the author's input as well. So it's just sort of a different way of doing it.
I would say sometimes it's even more creative, right? Because when you're writing your own book, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. But when you
Yeah.
get that, that prompt from a publisher, you have to work within the confines and meet their expectations for what they're looking for their concept or their
Yeah.
licensed property. And you do have to be creative, and you have to sort of be skilled at what you're doing in order to meet that vision and expectation. So
Yeah, especially if it's a licensed property, because you
yeah.
really, because they have people who review it and they need to make sure everything's on track, right? Like you can't suddenly give your character a sister if the licensed property does not have a sister for that
Yeah.
character, for example.
Yeah, and then you have to make plot points that you might be thinking of fit the characters that have already been created, sometimes created for tens and 20s of years, which is not easy.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
definitely a challenge.
And they also sometimes have a vision of the character's growth and trajectory, and you have to be able to work within that as well. So many
Yeah,
things, so many things.
so many things. But I think this is a good sense, a good introduction, if you will, to IP or intellectual property. I think for those of you who don't know, you've got a good sense of how to go into it and sort of what people are talking about when they mention an IP project. So we hope it was helpful. Don't forget to
Yeah.
like and subscribe. If there are any questions about IP or just anything else you want us to define or talk about, put it in the comments and we will definitely add it to our list.
Yeah, and if you're interested and your agent, to definitely talk to your agent about it and get their perspective on it, because they'll likely be able to give you a lot more than we just did.
Yeah, and agents all have their own strategies for how they might achieve it, or contacts and things like that too. So it's really helpful to have that conversation if it's something you're interested in.
Definitely. Good
Yep.
luck.
Okay. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday for another video.
Bye.